Healthy Homes, New Zealand's big attempt at turning cold, damp rentals into something that actually feels livable. The idea is good. The rollout, it's been a mess of red tape and confusing rules. Friend of the show, expert property investor Dave Whitburn returns. If you're a landlord, this is a compliance jungle.
Financial freedom faster. Financial freedom faster.
If you like making money rather than watching everyone else do it, hit that subscribe button and get ahead, because this is New Zealand's fastest growing real estate and investment show. Dave Whitburn was president of Auckland Property Investors Association and continues expanding his 20 million property portfolio. He started with a minor dwelling on the back of his section, and his latest development was 74 properties in West Auckland. Dave, is Healthy Homes good for investors?
I think it is great for investors. It's certainly good for the country. We've got over 600,000 homes across New Zealand that are rented out, and they tend to be at a poorer standard than owner-occupied dwellings. It's research that shows that you get issues with asthma, respiratory and cardiovascular conditions, so having a warm, healthy, dry home is a pretty good thing, and that's part of my worldview, that we want to make sure that we protect the most vulnerable citizens and have some minimum standards. If we didn't have them, we'd have some problems. We'd have some people that be a little bit perhaps reticent to spend any money, very reluctant to do so, and we'd continue to have these problems occurring.
So it's good rules for tenants. What are tenants? What should they understand about healthy homes?
From a tenant perspective, you're wanting to make sure that you're viewing the requirements in the legislation. The RTA makes the landlord do a Healthy Homes compliance statement. That's a really important document to append to tenancy agreements there. That's going to make sure that the Healthy Homes standards, such as the heating standard, the insulation standard, the ventilation standard, the moisture ingress and drainage standard, and then the fifth and finally the draft stocking standard, are all complied with. These give you the minimum levels of compliance to make sure that you're best equipped to have minimising your power bills and having that warm, healthy, dry home, as opposed to being in a slum.
And so these healthy home standards kick in for work having to be completed for July 1st?
Absolutely. They're for ones, if they're already in place, if you're about to change a tenant over. However, for all existing tenancies, the landlords now must comply by 1 July 2025. And if you don't, there are some serious fines available. And worst case, the Tenancy Compliant Investigation Team, a specialised unit from Tenancy Services, can go back and wipe the rent out from the start date of the tenancy agreement there. Only in the severe case. I don't want to be too alarmed on it.
And what about the insurance side of things? Is it expected that insurance companies are going to ask to see proof of this sort of thing, or?
Currently, they're not asking to see proof of it, but there's been some talk about seeing that in the future. That's very much a watch the space. Where it has already been creeping up are in things like the agreements for sale and purchase, because when selling an investment property, particularly if the tenants are in there, it's a reasonable question to ask if you've got the Healthy Homes compliance statement. It's also your ongoing responsibility to keep that property up to standard. So just because it might have passed 2, 3 or more years ago, sometimes things happen. Sometimes you're going to get some issues when you don't maintain your aircon unit, so it doesn't really work. Insulation tends to drop and subside a little bit, so you actually have to keep onto it as well, because otherwise you may have complied, but you don't now.
Yeah, and of course, the finance applications, sometimes there's going to be conditions that are dependent on meeting some standards, and
absolutely
getting a Healthy Homes assessment done, whether you own it or you want to own it, it's going to throw up things that are going to cost money, and sometimes it's not always going to be a certain cost.
Absolutely, and we were talking to some of the fantastic team there as well, with the hard-working dozens of financial advisors that you've got. They're already starting to see this coming through in the agreements for sale and purchase, so it is something that the lending teams are asking about. So when there are clauses in, rightfully so, to ask about this and ask for these Healthy Homes compliance statements. Surely we're going to see a trend for this as being something that's considered potentially at the finance application level that will become more mainstream. Absolutely.
So the Tenancy Services has quite a bit of information around the standards for each of the 5 main areas, but for heating, we're looking at heaters and heat pumps being available in more of the living areas?
Absolutely. So the landlord must provide one or more, I guess, as a fixed heating source in the living area. Now, this is a really interesting one. This is probably the most complex of all the standards. There's some bat-crazy calculations that you have to do in exempt windows, figure out what the glass is, the wall thickness, the insulation, and heights of things. It's quite complicated there, and even some of the professionals find this pretty difficult to do. In many cases, it's a little bit of overkill in this, but we have to be aware that there are different zones in the country. So would encourage that attention get paid to the heating standard. Landlords must provide one or more fixed heaters that can directly heat the main living room. The heaters must be acceptable types and meet the minimum heating capacity required for your main living room. So then it talks about how do we calculate this. So in many cases, it's simpler to get an expert to do this for you. It might well be that you can go to an air conditioning company to go and do this for you. Some of the big companies like EMAC and Oxyair are fantastic at doing it and offer this service. And we really need to be conscious that we're doing the right thing, not making mistakes.
Just a reminder, your competition is already subscribed to the fastest growing property investment channel in New Zealand. That means they're getting the insights first, making the moves first, and locking in profits while you're still debating whether to click a button. Be smart and subscribe. So David, going back to the second thing now is insulation. Is this main point going to be more pink bats in the roof, or what are we looking at?
Or eco wool, it doesn't tend to subside quite as much, in my opinion, there as well. But insulation has been compulsory since the 1st of July 2019. Pre-COVID seems like a world away, right? It's really important that we keep checking out our insulation, make sure it's there. It is one of the major ways to do this. Now, this isn't the wall insulation. We're not saying we have to retrofit the wall insulation there. If we've got skillion, special cathedral ceilings, we don't have to do that there. But if we've got standard truss roofs and room to get up there and put in the insulation, yeah, we've got to do that. Major source of heat loss is through the ceiling. Another major source is through the underfloor. So we will have to do the underfloor as well. And I think that that's actually a really good move for this. It really does make the difference, keeps the power bills in there, and quite frankly, from a landlord perspective, I believe you keep your tenants in there longer and you're doing the right thing for them, keeping them in their family as healthy as possible.
Let's go into ventilation. This is kitchens and bathrooms.
How's your extractor fan in your bathroom? Let's do that. Let's get that. Whether it gets turned on or not is another question, because the funny thing is that if you're going to create water, it has to go somewhere. It goes to the coldest surface as well. It never ceases to amaze me how many people, whether homeowners or tenants, when they, on a winter's day, they have a clothes rack inside there. When something comes out of the washing machine, it's got 5-10 litres of water in it. Where's that water going to go?
Yeah.
If you don't have windows open, it's not going up there. Some of it will go into the cold points, like in the ceiling, often in the corners of it there. So that one's a little bit silly. That's not part of it. There's no rule to stop stupidity. Dry your clothes outside or put them in a dryer that's ducted to the outside. But that covers the kitchen. The kitchen needs an extractor fan because of the steam and the vapors going off there, and that's the same with the bathrooms as well. That's a particularly easy standard to meet in most cases.
So this moisture ingress and drainage, this is for mostly for under the house, between the house and the ground.
Exactly, but hey, if you're a bit shonky on your gutters where it's sort of broken at halfway through down that's not so cool. You get some water ponding up as well. That's not great. So it's about keeping your gutters relatively free of debris, having the downpipes done and cleared off. But one of the traps though is if you've got adequate space underneath, I guess the floor. Obviously, many places have slabs, so it's not an issue. But a ground-proof vapor membrane, basically a polythene membrane that's sort of clipped down, taped around piles, whether jack stud, timber piles, or whatever. That's something there that needs to get put in.
Draft stopping, this is under the doors predominantly?
Predominantly under the doors. A few old windows as well, good old sash windows and villas and bungalows and things like that. I went to a seminar that we had at the Auckland Property Investors Association where we had a tenancy compliance investigation team member from MB saying that if we can fit a $2 coin through there, you've got a problem. You're not compliant with the draft.
Just most doors, right? Still
a bit of a problem there as well. So what counts? Can you get a knitted snake or something like my grandma used to knit and put that at the bottom as well? Probably can just chuck a blanket down. That's in practice what many people do.
Yeah, just like a tape of sticky tape with carpet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tenancy service is a good place to start to find information online. If you're going to be looking to buy an investment property in the next couple of months, certainly want to be thinking about putting healthy homes clauses into those agreements.
Absolutely. Chat to your lawyers as well. Unfortunately, many lawyers don't invest in property. That's always something that's disappointed me in them. They get too hung up on the risk, but sometimes the biggest risk that you take is not taking any risk at all. So they've quite frankly failed clients, and they're very lucky we've got such a lenient legal system, because in America you get sued for telling your clients not to take advice you don't hear.
Thanks for your insights today, Dave. And a reminder, again, money moves fast and the investors are making the most of it are here. This is the fastest growing property channel in New Zealand for a reason. If you don't subscribe now, just know that someone else is already using this knowledge to make the next deal where you hesitate.